With the first speech in our class, we listened to one of our classmates talk about his position on replacing the CLA building. His major claim was replacing replacing Cal Poly Pomona's CLA building will have a negative effect on the college. He supports this claim by using three secondary claims. The first being, replacing the building will be harmful to the environment. The second, replacing the building will be harmful to the navigation around the school. And the third being, replacing the building will be a misuse of money. In his first secondary claim, the speaker states that replacing the CLA building will be harmful to the environment. To back this, he uses a quote from the Poly Post from a man named Sylvester, who we know nothing about or what his backings are. He says that it would be in our interest to minimize the impact of the impact on the garden, but we do realize that once the demolition occurs, there is going to be some impact. The speaker takes from Sylvester's words, and he says he takes from Sylvester's words there is going to be some impact, and goes on to tell the audience much of the garden, including the animals inside, will be destroyed during the process of demolition, which is quite a stretch. After some research, it turns out that Sylvester is really Michael Sylvester, the Associate Vice President of Facilities Planning and Management for Cal Poly. So, someone of that stature, you know, he's going to try to preserve a place like Cal Poly's garden, which is one of the first things that you're told about when you come to Cal Poly because of its importance. The speaker also goes on to say that due to the fact that the CLA building will be operational during the construction of the new building, existing building material could not be used for the new building. He calls this a waste of materials, and it goes against the three R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle, used in the Leadership in Energy Environment Design certification process. But he doesn't say if this certification is something that is mandatory for CSU schools, or if it's just something that looks nice on paper for other people to see. And it's also possible that since the new building is going to be smaller, that or of some other type of material, that most of the materials might not even be able to be used in the new building. In his second secondary claim, he says replacing the building will be harmful to navigation around school. The most important words to pay attention to is his specification of around school. Because when you think about it, the CLA building serves almost no purpose when you need to find your way around campus. For example, if I wanted to go from this building to the Bronco Student Center, there's no reason to use the CLA building as a point of reference. The only places that it's useful for finding is probably the parking structure or the CLA building itself. Other than that, there's no evidence provided to show how it helps with direction, other than that it's the tallest building on campus and can be seen from freeways and streets, this really doesn't help us getting around school. The third secondary claim used is replacing the building will be a misuse of money. The speaker makes the point that to update the current building and to build a new one, both will cost around $80 million, as stated in Poly Post and Polycentric. So it's understandable to assume that it's pointless to build a whole new building when you could just repair the old one at the same price. But what isn't mentioned is the fact that the current CLA building is just repaired or brought up to code, that it doesn't change the fact that it still stands on top of the San Jose fault line that is mentioned in an article by the Poly Post. Also the fact that everyone on campus knows that the actual point of the building is facing towards a totally different direction than it was designed to. And a school that is known for engineering and its accredited architecture program should have a building that represents its high points and what it's all about. Therefore, if you care at all about the image of your school or even the safety of the people in the CLA building, that this is not a misuse of money at all. Thank you.
All right, the structural stuff is pretty good, although I thought when you got to that first point that there was, it wasn't clear if there were two parts on that first point or if you had moved to a second point, so there was a little bit of confusion. Later on in the speech, I thought it was clear what you were doing because your signposting internally was a little stronger. I thought you did a good job analyzing the advocate's evidence, except, for instance, you don't give us any reason to believe that the lack of qualifications given by the person who is being quoted is problematic. You could then come back, in essence, and you provide the qualifications for that particular quote, and then you make an assumption that if they're in that particular position, they're likely to be concerned about these issues, and I think that that's a big inference on your part. So, in essence, you're kind of challenging the grounds of the evidence, or the grounds that the advocate's using, then you kind of justify those grounds, and then you present your own claim that makes an assumption about the grounds, and I think that's a little bit problematic. On the third point, I think you've got some good points here about the building, its location on the fault, about the failure of the point to be in the direction that it's supposed to be. As an engineering school, we ought to have something that is more reflective of the quality of what we're doing here. I think those are great ideas. I just need to have a little bit of proof of that. You know what? I'm not privy to all of the rumors and ideas that get passed around about the school. I'd never heard this thing about the point of the building. I don't doubt that it's probably true, but you know what? How about a little proof on that? The earthquake fault, maybe it's mentioned in the article. I don't know, but you should tell us that it was mentioned in the article and that that continues to be a problem. So it's the lack of evidence on that point that I think is a little bit undermining of the argument. But I did like the argument as a way to end. I thought that that was an effective way to present a justification for getting rid of the building. All right.